is how to use innovation partnership in the social sector. Before starting with the program, I would like to give you some instructions. Today, to ask questions, we are going to use Slido. So please do not use the Q&A function that you find in WebEx, but you can simply open Slido. You need to use your phone or your laptop. Just put slido.com, and then the password for this meeting is GPP helpdesk. So this webinar is about the use of innovation partnerships in the social sector. Innovation partnership are a new procedure that has been introduced by the 2016 Directive on Public Procurement, and it's not very well known. It hasn't been used little in general and very little in the social sector. So this is why we have decided with the European Commission to propose this webinar for this topic. I'm Valentina Caimi from EDEL, the European Association for Information on Local Development, and I will be moderating this webinar today. The program foresees 4 speakers that you can see on your screen on the slide. So we are going to have the opening, an introduction from the EU GPP Help Desk by Anna Lupi from DG GROW, the European Commission. Then we are going to have an educational session from Dr. Jenny Melitz from JSK Stockman about innovation partnerships. Then we are going to hear from Ulla Johanko from the city of Helsinki, which is one of the very few examples of the use of innovation partnership in the social sector, and particularly for a coaching service tailored to unemployed job seekers. And finally, we are also going to hear from Frederik Musnug from Diakonie Deutschland about the potential of innovation partnerships to promote sustainability in the provision of social services. I would like to start with an icebreaker to understand who is following us, who are the attendees. So please, you can open Slido. And I hope my colleagues can also put it on the screen. Okay. So please join slido.com and then put the password GPP helpdesk. Okay. And we would like to know what kind of organization you are representing. If you are from a contracting authority, from a social economy organization, from an NGO, a private company, an independent expert. Okay, so for the moment we see that it's mainly contracting authorities. Yeah. Okay, so the questions are arriving. So 50% contracting authorities, other 31%. We also have some attendees from NGOs. Great. Okay. We can go to the second question. And we would like to know if you are familiar with innovation partnerships or not, or to some extent. Okay. To some extent, okay, good. Not at all. And very few, yes, absolutely. Okay, so we really hope that this webinar is going to contribute to your knowledge and also to inspire you for the future. Let's go to the last question. So now we would like to hear from you. Which word comes to your mind when you think of innovation partnerships? Research? Yes, indeed. It's a procedure that allows to spur research. Complicated? Yes. Complex? Collaboration? Yeah, indeed. It's a procedure that allows collaboration between the contracting authority and the providers. Green, technology, trust, of course, new horizons, yeah, technology, inclusivity, bridging partnership, SME, prototype, social field, cooperation. But we can see that complex is coming out, innovation, research, technology. Okay, very good. So perhaps at the end of this webinar, the cloud would be a bit different. Okay, so many thanks. Now we can start with the program. And I would like to give the floor to Anna Lupi from the European Commission DG Grow. Anna has been working in DG Grow on public procurement law and policies for 7 years. She's in charge of the Commission policy on sustainable procurement, and she coordinates awareness raising and dissemination activities on the topic, as well as on the creation of support tools for public buyers. And in the past, she dealt with a number of member states as a desk officer. So, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Valentina, and thank you very much for organizing this webinar. I have to say I'm really happy about about this webinar. I'm really excited because as Valentina said, I normally deal with sustainability considerations in public procurement. And especially when it comes to social services and the social sector, we hardly ever deal with the crossover of these type of services and of social considerations in procurement with innovation. So it's also to a certain extent kind of a new topic for me and for us. You will know that this webinar is organized by our GPP help desk, which is basically there to help to receive the questions of public buyers across the EU. For a few years, it was dedicated mainly to replying to questions on green procurement, but it's now also treating issues related to socially responsible public procurement. And of course, the help desk, it's also there to to organize this sort of activities and to bring to you more knowledge and more examples of how to put in practice social and green considerations. You know probably that we also have a news alert that you can subscribe to in case you want to stay up to date, not only with the events that we organize, but also with a lot of news in the field of green and social procurement. But when it comes to today's topic, I think it's really important. It's a way for us to really launch the discussion on the intersection between innovation and social procurement. And some of you may know already. You seem to know, to be at least acquainted with the innovation partnership, which was really meant to be there with the 2014 directives as a procedure to allow for the combination of research and innovation in procurement. And you will see, because there are people in this panel today who are more of an expert than me on the innovation partnership. But basically, the process is always more or less divided in three phases. One in which you are looking as a public authority for a suitable partner. Then you award the contracts establishing the innovation partnerships, and then you develop really the solution in the partnership itself. You may also want to know that we have produced, if you're interested after this webinar in digging into the topic of the innovation partnership, we've produced a number of resources specifically on this topic. They focus, of course, more specifically on the innovation related aspects, and the research and the prototyping and how you consult the market. But we have in particular a brochure that we published at the beginning of this year. And we also have, if you go on our on the DG Grow channel on YouTube, we have a number of webinars on the different segments also of the innovation partnership. And of course, you probably are already aware that we have guidance on social procurement, on green procurement, and on innovation procurement, which can also help you make the link with different innovation and sustainability aspects beyond, let's say, the use of a specific procedure. We also run internally a very quick research on TED data. You know that TED is this database where we have all the published notices at European level, and we just wanted to have a look at what was going on with the innovation partnership. And what we found out was that basically there were, as Valentina said, few contracts awarded in between 2016 and 2020. We have about we counted 103. In more than 60% of these contracts, we had SME participation, which is not bad. And there were a few innovation partnerships with a very big volume, but also many with smaller volumes. So it's a tool that has been used in very different ways, and in about 15 member states. And about 30% of the procedures we saw included some green or social aspects, which I think is also very significant. And it's actually this very small research that we run internally at the end of last year that inspired us also to maybe organize something like this, and it helped us also spot some of the good practices that we will see presented today. So I'm really looking forward to the speakers. I'm sure I will also have a lot to learn from them. So I wish you all a very good webinar.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thanks a lot. Participants will have the possibility to ask some questions, but after the presentation from Dr. Jenny Melitz from JSK Stockman. And we are going to hear from Jenny more information about the procedure of innovation partnerships. Jenny is a certified lawyer for public procurement law and has practiced in public procurement law for more than 14 years. She advises the procurement of works, supplies, and services. She specialized in innovation partnerships and competitive dialogues. For contracting authorities, Jenny structures and manages complex projects. And if necessary, she also represents her clients in judicial review proceedings. Jenny, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Valentina. I hope everybody can see the presentation now, just to make sure. Okay, it does work. Great. And also from me, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to our focus on how to use innovation partnerships in the social sector. Today, I would like to introduce to you innovation partnerships as an award procedure, and also to show you how they can be used to effectively procure socially responsible services, works, and supplies. We will start with just a little bit of history, because there has been quite a change in public procurement law, and from my work, I sometimes have the impression that not everybody has noticed. So that's what this slide is for. In 1999, so let's say 20 years back, in public procurement law, the European directives, but also the national laws, had formal procedures that really prevailed the procurement laws. You only could have negotiations in your procurement procedures in quite exceptional cases under certain conditions. And contracting authorities usually fully defined all the services and works and supplies that they wanted to purchase. And there was really no room, or very little room, for the bidders to give some, to involve into this defining the services, works, and supplies. This has really changed quite a bit for today, 2022. Actually, it changed a whole lot with the 2014 Procurement Directives, which brought much more flexibility in the procurement procedures. Negotiations are still possible under conditions, but they are much facilitated. As far as I understood, it was really the EU's idea that with a new directive, it should be encouraged that there are more negotiations. And thus the bidders can now more than before participate in defining the services, works, and supplies. We'll get back to this in the following slides. Let me show you firstly to all the procurement procedures that include negotiations. That's the competitive procedure, where the services, works, or supplies are already defined by the contracting authority, but can still be negotiated to a certain extent in the procedure. Then we have the competitive dialogue. Also there, of course, there is a first definition, but the main defining of services, works, and supplies takes place in the procurement procedure. And of course, today's main subject, the innovation partnerships, where the defining of the services, works, and supplies is going on, already takes place during the procurement procedure, but is still going on after the award of the contract. Now, that was something quite new. The innovation partnership was introduced in 2014 with the directive back then. And before, this would have been, well, I wouldn't say impossible, but quite hard. I mean, you couldn't really, you couldn't negotiate the product that you purchased after the award of the contract, or in very little ways, at least. So just to give you a quick overview about the innovation partnership, Anna has just mentioned it very short also in her introduction. As I just said, the award procedure is first, then the contract award, and then afterwards, you see this is kind of, well, maybe not the main, but a major part of this type of procedure. After the award of the contract, the innovation or the research and innovation process starts, and only when that is finished, there is the purchase, or can be the purchase, of the work, service, or supplies. And then, of course, if this is purchased, the performance is going to start. We'll get back more in detail, but just to give you a quick overview. Now, back to the directive. first, I want to start with the question, what is innovation partnership according to the directive? That's what's laid down in Article 31. It's saying the innovation partnership shall aim at the development of an innovative product, service, or works, and the subsequent purchase of the resulting supply, services, and works. So this is what we just saw. One slide back, the contract award, and then the innovation process and the purchase. Now, what you may ask yourselves reading this is, of course, what is innovation? What is innovative? And especially also with social economy purchases, what can be innovative? Here it must be made clear that according to the Procurement Directive, which has its definitions, of course, in Article 2, innovation is much more than you might think in the first instance. It's not only completely new products, it's also significantly improved product, services, or processes, as you can read here, but also new marketing methods, new organizational methods in business practices, workplace or organization, or external relations. So it's much broader than you might think, because when advising and suggesting innovation partnerships, my clients often ask me, well, this is not really innovative. It's not new. So it's something I try to tell them then. And of course, referring to the Article 2 from the directive, that it can also be a major improvement, you know, or a method rather than the purchase itself. So I don't get tired saying that. Also, I want to, as we're talking about social procurement here, in the last lines you see on this slide, the directive expressly mentions also the purpose of helping solve societal challenges, and of course the Europe 2020 strategy for smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. So that's what's the idea behind the innovation partnership and the definition of innovation. Now, I would like to show you next when innovation partnerships may be applied. That's why I'm, of course, as a lawyer, we see a bit more from the directive here and the definitions. Article 26 tells us about this different procedures when you may use them. Of course, you may know that open and restricted procedures, that's what paragraph 2 states here, you may just use them without any further requirements. Then on the other hand, and we jump to paragraph 4, the competitive procedures with negotiations and also the competitive dialogue, they have certain conditions for use in certain situations, which I'm not citing here, but you may not use them unless you fulfill these conditions. And in between, we find the innovation partnership, and much to surprise of some people reading it, it's the same wording as paragraph 2, the open and restricted procedure, meaning that there are no further conditions for applying innovation partnerships. So you are just as free to use innovation partnerships as you are for use of open and restricted procedures. That is quite surprising, because I would say innovation partnerships in a way are closer to the competitive dialogue, you know, as stated a few slides beforehand. As far as not having defined the purchase and so forth. You may really use it at all times. The question getting more important here is, of course, is it a good idea to use innovation partnerships? So what you always have to ask yourself if you want to use innovation partnership, and you can use it all the time, is this a suitable, is this a procedure that is suitable for my need, for the works or service or supplies I want to purchase? And the question I would suggest here is to ask yourself, firstly, do I want to fully define, or do I want to fully define the services, works, or supplies I want to purchase? Of course, you always can, you know, because you can purchase a service that defines it for you. That's always the most simple way to do it. But if you want this input by the bidders and by your partner, you know, what you see on the left-hand side, the bidder or the related partner and the contracting authority together will work on defining the services and works and supplies that are to be purchased. If this is an idea you have, and I heard in the poll we had in the beginning something about new horizons. I thought that was a great term. I'll take that into all my into all my speeches, because that's what it is. You know, encourage the companies, the enterprises to take part here. Of course, that's our ball on the right-hand side. The contracting authority always gets to evaluate the proposed solutions and to decide whether they want to purchase this or no, whether it is the right solution for them or not. So if you decide to use a innovation partnership, there is only a short note, not in the articles of the directive, but in the recitals, which are all the way in the first part of the directive, saying that the innovation partnership should be based on the procedure rules for the competitive procedure without with a negotiation. We'll jump right away to the next slide, giving you the way through an innovation partnership, also with an example of a timeline. I think we'll hear later from Ulla that her innovation partnership took a bit longer in Helsinki, but it's very dependent on the topic, of course. But just to give you an idea, how does it work? What is the timeline and also the way through an innovation partnership? The part shown here in light blue is the procurement procedure, which is really the one, as we just saw, of procedure with the negotiations, the competitive procedure with negotiations, starting with the contract notice and the request to participate. Then after choosing the tenderers, the invitation to the initial tenders, you can insert an inquiry colloquium, which is kind of oral questions in place of the written questions. Then you get the initial tenders. Then it's going on with the negotiation of the tenders, the final tenders, and in the end, of course, the contract award. That's when usually, you know, that's when procurement law usually stops after the contract award. But here, as you can see in the darker shade of blue, the innovation process starts, or the research and innovation process, as it's called. After a kickoff, you'll have the negotiations. Oh, maybe just short mentioning, you can have one or several innovation partners. That depends on, it's free for you to choose whether you have one or several. You will start the negotiations. The innovation partner or partners will suggest their solutions. If you have several partners, you can reduce them to one. And you negotiate until you find the solution that is perfect for you, and not unimportant, also the solution that is within your budget. And at the end, and that's the great part about the innovation partnership, you can purchase, and that's the way it's supposed to go. But if you don't find the right solution, then there is also a possibility to exit the innovation partnership, so that you don't have to buy something you don't want, you know, if the innovation process wasn't successful. I haven't seen it. Mostly it goes on and there is a solution to find, even if it may take a bit longer than here. We have a year here. Probably won't be able to make all the innovation partnerships in a year, but some even quicker. It really depends on the topic. So that's a quick run through the timeline. As we're talking about the social procurement today, let me give you just some quick ideas about how innovation partnerships could be used for the social sector. As we don't have but 2 or 3 minutes left, I think I'll put them together a bit. Cleaning and gardening, maybe that's about the same topic, where the part of unskilled labor you can use is quite large, especially in gardening, I would say and think. And so certain groups can be included and trained in these services, like long-term unemployed or migrants or disabled, and we see this a lot. And the idea about the innovation partnership would be to include the bidders and later the innovation partner to develop some ideas how a good inclusion of these groups can take part, like a minimum percentage of employees or working hours of that group. All this could be stipulated during the innovation partnership for the contract that is to be closed, or maybe a program for job stability for these groups. And as all this makes the job more expensive, the idea of the innovation partnership would be to deal with this problem and to find a solution how to realize these measures even for a price that is within the budget. It's similar in health and social care with the problem that there are more use in skilled workers, but the problems are, or the ideas about the innovation part would be the same. Construction sector, also more need for skilled workers. Here, I guess the focus could lie on the International Labour Organization terms and how to ensure that the works are carried out in accordance with the conventions. Maybe control measures could be established and the ideas in the innovation partnership could be developed there. I want to let you know just real short also about one innovation partnership where I was involved, so I can know a little more. It's a social housing development in Berlin. You can find it on the TED. There it was the idea to include neighborhood improvements in the buildings, and it was quite interesting that there were ideas from creating social spaces, co-working spaces, meeting spaces, and so this was quite interesting, and they found a good solution there within the innovation partnership, how to realize it, and all within the public money. Okay, I'll look at my watch. The last is the ICT, the information communication technology. There, it's probably about the equipment and social innovation. Probably ensuring supply chain transparency would be an idea to have innovation partnerships about. Okay, I'll close with a look at the clock, hoping to have given you a few examples that you get some ideas how you can get innovation partnerships to work in the social sector. I would certainly like to encourage all of you, and I was quite glad to see that at least probably half of you have heard of innovation partnerships and have at least a slight idea how to work with them. I hope this idea got a little bit more input from me today. Do give innovation partnerships a try yourselves, not if you buy pencils and very simple purchases, but if there is something more complex, just think it through and decide for and against, but don't forget to think about it. We'll hear a great example from Ulla later today. I'm very anxious to hear about that. And thank you for listening for now. And please do ask me all the questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I think it has been extremely clear and really inspiring. And I'm happy that you also put as possible examples the social and care sector, because clearly innovation partnerships are a procedure that can be used to really to promote co-design of services. So between the contracting authority and the service providers. So could be really an idea to explore this. Now the participants can ask questions to both Anna and Jenny by using Slido. And I remind you, so you simply need to go to your phone or your laptop and type slido.com, and you can put the questions there. For the moment, I do not see any question. Do you really do not have any question? We can give you some more time. Maybe in the meanwhile, I can ask a question to Jenny. So Jenny, in your practice with your clients, what are the main challenges that you have encountered in the application of innovation partnerships? Or what
mhm.
is basically the skepticism, the doubts that contracting authorities have in using this procedure?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of not knowing enough about this procedure, and of course, we all know what's new is. Thank you for the comment from Helena there. I think it's what is not. It is not known well enough, and then people are very unsure about, the length of the procedure. That's why I like to put the timeline to give an example how it could work and how long it could take, and then you have to be, of course, ready to. You have to be open and ready for the input by the private companies. It's of course it's easier to define it all through and say, okay, this is how I want it, and then of course I don't have to have maybe award criteria deciding whether this is a good or bad solutions. I have to take more solutions. I have to take more decisions, and I have to take more responsibility as well. So this is probably a part that keeps the contracting authorities from using it. But if you do choose the innovation partnership, I mean, that's the way the world goes. Private companies are and have to be more innovative than the contracting authorities, be they public or private. Because it's the enterprises are always the ones who do the innovations and think of new things. Because yeah, in the end, that's also what they earn their money with, and that's quite okay. So that's really the main step to convince to use it, or to as I said, to even think about using it and evaluate whether it's the right choice or no. So
Good, thank you very much. And we have another question. So if you can elaborate a little more about the Berlin
yeah,
example.
sure, I'll be glad to. Thanks for the question. So about the Berlin example mentioned, indeed, it's one of the really few innovation partnerships we see. It's a bit unusual because it is innovation partnership for works contract. And there you really have to take a look back at the definition of the innovation that I showed you on one of the slides. Because it's if you or what most people think innovation partners or innovation about works contracts would be new ways to build, new materials to build with, and that's not what it's limited to, but rather, and that was what it was the case here, was, I mean, one part that is not the social aspect, that's why I didn't mention it, but was that the lot where it's a high tower building with, I'm not quite sure, probably about 20 stories, which is quite high for Berlin. It was difficult to realize it on this lot. So that was one of the things that was part of the innovation partnership also. But what they inserted moreover was the question, how can we not only build the apartments, the housing, and of course we have strict rules here for the social housing. There has to be a certain percentage that has to be a social housing in Berlin if you build new, depending a bit on the situation, but basically that's what the case was here. But more than that, the idea was, especially because it was a lot of people who were going to live there, some developments, and that's what was the input of the innovation partner here. What can I do more than just live there? which would be like, I mean, it was open, but the ideas that came that are maybe not super innovative, but more than you see in regular housing projects, was like co-working spaces, or I think they had on every floor they had a certain area where the neighbors could meet, just to meet and talk, and so I thought this was a quite good idea, and it's something that an architect probably wouldn't plan in such a project unless he is told to. And the contracting authority, which was a public housing company in Berlin, they usually don't ask either. So maybe they do in their newer projects. But of course, I mean, all the room for this costs money. So it was also a question of how can I realize these ideas and still have the budget? And it's not a room that is rented for money. So it goes from my budget in a way. I thought this was quite neat and is a good example for there can be innovation even if you don't see it directly.
But indeed, the fact that you allow the inhabitants, the neighborhoods to express, to participate, so promoting participatory approaches is a way to innovate,
Oh yeah,
clearly.
definitely.
So that's very useful to know. And we hope that we can inspire more contracting authorities in the future from
Yep.
this example.
That would be great.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to move to the next example, which is so it's really an example, one of the few examples we have found about the use of innovation partnership in the social sector. So the speaker is Ulla Juanko from the city of Helsinki. Ulla has worked in the city of Helsinki for more than 20 years in various expert positions. She has a background in education and employment services, and for the past 3 years, she coordinated procurement in employment services. And the case she's going to present is an innovative acquisition case. And she's saying that it was a really challenging, but at the same time, extremely interesting, real learning experience. So, Ulla, we would like to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And good day all, and greetings from Helsinki. Our case of tailored training service for unemployed and my presentation is a kind of report. So welcome to the journey. Let's start. Next, please. Okay, I will tell you a few highlights along the way. We had a year of preparation, a year of tendering, and half-year development phase, and a long journey together with our partners in front. Total contract value is about 2.5 million in this service. Next, please. Here is some background information for you. The city of Helsinki has been organized various forms of support and coaching for the unemployed for several years. But the results have been poor. So we launched workshops and considered the target group for the new service. We wanted to invest in the unemployed in a weak labor market situation, especially in weak labor market situation. We found the cornerstones, and the cornerstones were on the job training and support at the workplace, and the second was integration of the service into our basis processes. we came to the conclusion that the traditional open tender might not the best procedure. Next, please. Here is description of the target group with the wide range of barriers to employment. Clients who have, for example, neuropsychiatric problems, learning disabilities, or fear of social situation. In short, those people who are always remain last on the selection lines. Next, please. From the beginning, we had the idea that we do not want to buy a ready-made package, but to develop the service together with partners. We researched the problems of current coaching and created goals for the partnership. And here you can see what we found. The main goal was for the coaches to be part of our youth and adult teams. Not we and you, but us. Next, please. Why did we end up an innovation partnership? The answer is easy and short. We were not satisfied with the quality and level of development of previous coaching. The result was so poor. Next, please. Here you can see the tendering process. It took a year. How you see, we started a market dialogue in January, and in December we had a decision on 2 partners. The journey was long and heavy, but at the same time very interesting. We have first 9 and at the end 2. Next, please. Everyone who has made a tendering knows that the price is very easy to ask and measure. But drawing up qualitative criteria is a difficult task. However, we wanted to place particular emphasis on quality. And therefore, its weight was 70%. In practice, this means that we had a huge amount of written material that the steering group went through and evaluated. Really hard work. Next, please. The timing of the development phase came at a really bad time. We launched a nationwide municipal experiment in employment, and we have 50,000 new clients and 300 new employees in our organization. And at the same time, there was a COVID pandemic in the world. So we couldn't face to each other. We had 2 main goals of the development phase. One was to test coaching in real life environments. And the second was to create a reward model together with partners. I think we succeeded despite the challenges. Next, please. A few lifting requirements. A lot of time and researches, what means people and euros. Courage to address weaknesses of own organization. From the service provider's point of view, a long commitment to the service and the continuous development of its own operation. For all parties, it requires good interaction and diplomatic skills. Next, please. And what did we learn? We learned that everyone must be ready to give up something. Collaborative development is a demanding team sport, especially team sport. Mutual trust is needed if you want to succeed. Developing an organization operating models is difficult and requires determined management. And finally, if you are not satisfied with the results, you can look in the mirror. Next, please. And here you can see different employment results. And the big point is that the results are so far promising. Clients have been employed 3 times more efficiently than in previous similar services that we have had. 3 times more efficiently. We are very proud of the results. And then the last slide, please. We can show that the innovation partnership delivers results. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Ulla. It has been really interesting, and of course, you have highlighted that innovation partnership is a learning process. So it's a procedure that allows both the contracting authority and also the service providers to learn during their way, their path. And this is really interesting. I think many of us are aware that in the use of the structural funds, there is the partnership principle, but we can find a similar mechanism also in the context of public procurement. So we hope that this webinar will give more inspiration to other contracting authorities to experiment this type of procedure. And now I would like to ask the participants to put some questions again in Slido, and let's see if something is coming up. Yes, there are some questions, so if my colleagues can show them. So do these partnerships give more space for users and citizens to contribute with their views or needs?
Yes, yes, of course.
Good. And then there is another one from you, for you, sorry, Ulla, are you thinking of using this again? Would you change anything?
Maybe I tried to do a little more quickly at the first, but now this was our first case, our first innovation partnership, and that's why we have a lot of workshops, and we use several workshops and hours together. But maybe next time I can do it little but quickly.
Good. And yes, there is one question that we can ask also to Jenny. How can you plan the budget in innovative partnerships?
I think I'd pass it to Ulla though, because
yeah, to both. I mean,
it's the contracting authority
who wants
really
to
does the budget, and I only look
Okay.
about it. It's
Ulla, would you like to reply?
To answer, what was that answer?
How can you plan budget in innovative partnerships?
Can you ask that some other way? I don't know quite what's.
How do you deal with the budget? So you're in the framework of innovation partnership. Are you going to so there is a value of the contract in the first tender specifications, and then you see what has been proposed by the contractors, and then you negotiate. How do you come up with a budget?
Yes, we have that tendering process take that a year, if you mean that, and there was many kind of evaluating process in that tendering year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And then there is the last one, and then we will switch to Friederike. Given the time and resources required, and some of the challenges you faced, did you encounter any internal resistance to use the innovation partnership?
I think the biggest challenge was to keep all parties involved in the journey, because this was so long tendering process. That was the biggest challenge, to keep all parties. I would like to say that innovation process is something like marathon running.
Okay, good. And the last question, and then we really want to hear from Friederike. How did you rate the fulfillment of the quality criteria? Did you use school grades? Ulla?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay, so it's the last question. How did you rate the fulfillment of quality criteria? Did you use school grades?
Yes, school grade and some other evaluation methods.
Okay, many thanks. So now I would like to introduce the next speaker and final speaker of today, who is Dr. Friederike Musgnuk from Diakonie Deutschland. Friederike is acting head of the Department for Legal and Economic Questions for Social Enterprises at Diakonie Deutschland. Her field of expertise is in constitutional law, social law, and procurement law. And she has a special interest in how to conduct public procurement as an instrument for organizing social services within German social law. So, Friederike, can you show your slides?
Yes, just a moment. Here we go. I hope, yes, that's it.
Can you try to
yes.
put it in? Okay, fantastic.
Yes, here I am. Thank you very much, Valentina, for the invitation, and thanks for everyone's attention. I would like to propose to you in what way Diakonie Deutschland is involved in innovation processes, and how, according to my opinion, innovation partnership may help to facilitate this, and how. So my point is, first, I would like to introduce you to some of our innovative sustainable work within the Diakonie, to show you how we cooperate and are in partnership with with public authorities for sustainable work, and to introduce the scope of innovation partnerships in within this. So Diakonie Deutschland has made a huge pledge last year in 2021, and we settled to become to do our work without greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. The time is running. And so the question is how are we going to implement this? So our main point is to reduce our ecological footprint for the direct legal enterprises by either avoiding or reducing greenhouse gas emissions, or if they are unavoidable, to compensate for them. So avoidance and reduction of climate gas, of greenhouse gas emission is mainly taking place by refurbish our real estate and our stock, to use climate neutral building or machinery, or otherwise to change our working materials. And their solar and bioenergy is one huge point, but we have found from insights and research that nutrition is another big point if you want to reduce our ecological footprint. Or creating green space is another important point. And the other thing is, as I mentioned, it's compensation for inevitable emissions that are by supporting ourselves, some projects that are either doing ecological or social work themselves. And there's this organization, Klima Collector, which is operated by churches in Germany and other European countries. How to do this? Cooperation is a very important point if you want to work on and reach our goal. And cooperation takes either place within social economy, and here we are intensely working together with the German Caritas Germany. I will show you later what projects we are doing there. But likewise, we are networking intensely with civil society and other organizations that are not in the first place doing social work like us, but there's who have committed to sustainable, ecologically sustainable work. There is the Nature Protection Organization within Germany, and we have now based our cooperation on a more permanent base. But another point for Diakonie is very important, that is, we are lobbying intensely for socially sustainable climate policy that points out that necessary policy changes must take place in a way that does not burden people with little or no income disproportionately. We looking on if you are looking on energy prices, but policies to reduce the ecological footprint. I think we think it's very important that people with little or no income must not be left out of this process that involves the whole society, because we have from our researches, we have seen that households with small or no income leave a proportionally much smaller ecological footprint than households that have much spare money for extensive gadgetry, so with less possibilities to buy cars, TV sets or something. Of course, the footprint is much smaller. And of course, and now we're drawing near to the point of public procurement. Of course, public authorities are very important partners for us. The 20th federal government has pledged itself very expressively to reach climate neutrality until 2045. And there's a huge interest, especially by our ministries for ecological questions, but especially for Ministry for Economy and Climate Neutrality, to cooperate with civil society. And there are think tanks and many other forums to discuss this. And another important point is the support of innovative initiatives like grant programs. So the project I promised to briefly show you is is one, the implementation of EU taxonomy in social enterprises, and we are working on a guideline to show social economy branches how to report on their sustainable work. And so I've already indicated that Caritas Germany is a very important partner, and you see that this project is nearly finished and it's about to be rolled out next month or so. Another very far-going point is the sustainable procurement of textiles, because you can imagine with many hospitals or senior residences, the procurement of the maintenance of textiles is a very huge point, and one where you really can make a difference by looking on how these products are produced, this textile wear is produced, and that is a point of social as well as ecological sustainability. And again, we are working closely with Caritas Germany and with the Society for International Cooperation. And there, the procurement, many of our partners and those who are are participating in this project are now within the procurement process, and so we have now found so many who are interested in this that we have extended our project till 2025. And we have opened this project to enterprises affiliated with other non-profit social organizations. And now there's another one we are having a look on. This is a project that looks on how to implement social sustainable management and climate protection within Caritas and Diakonie. And we want to support organizations in the building up and sustainability management. And here again, we have found 100 social enterprises who are interested in becoming and joining a pilot processing. So, but here we are couldn't yet start because we are awaiting the decision for grant funding. So the challenges for this work is quite obviously financing the implementation of the new work focus. Funding of larger investments, especially in refurbishments, is quite a challenge in the non-profit sector, because the German rules for non-profit sector demands a very quick reinvestment and keeps the reserve budgets for too lean to easily finance these huge refurbishments just off the cuff. So financing such projects relies heavily on the public grants. But there is another point, and that again draws me nearer to public procurement, because it's the refinancing of the extra costs for sustainable social work. And especially many social law codes have provided very strict settings for the financing of services, and especially the question of how to refinance investments is very, very narrowly ruled. And so any additional cost factors must fit into those very narrow frames and controlling criteria. And another thing is these rules usually stipulate for economy and cost efficiency, but both are often equaled and interpreted as thrifty. So the idea which we have in public procurement of a very large idea of economic, of cost and performance relation is not very far developed in social law. And so I think we have to do a great bit of convincing work. And so yeah, that's what I said. The social law has yet to open for the broader understanding of economic. We already find a procurement law. So I think that's one of our biggest challenges right now, to convince the politicians that we have to think these two sectors closely together. So possible cooperation and partnership with public authorities. And there are many points of mutual interest between public authorities and the social service providers. And public authorities often are under legal obligation to reach certain goals, and they have political agendas. As I've said, this coalition contract says climate neutrality till 2045. Social service providers can have experience, professional know-how, to develop solutions. And there are many mutual issues apart from economic change and ecologically sustainable work. There are points we need to work on housing for persons with low or no income, housing for handicapped people in accordance with the UNCRPD, this the Charter of Rights for people people with handicaps, suitable occupations for disadvantaged people, or preventive social work that in social places that involves family care, family consulting, youth care, education, social counseling. And that reminds me very strongly of the project Jenny has just earlier talked about, how to create social spaces and how to bring together the know-how, the public commitment in order to reach solutions for pressing social problems. We are insofar lucky that German social law provides a whole toolbox of different procedures, of which public procurement is but one, and can be a very effective one. And so it's always important to look at the criteria of how to pick one of those, the best adapted procedure. And so I think we have one very strong social ratio, which that says that if you have to address individual legal claims to social services, German social law makes a certain triangular contract system mandatory, which is without public procurement. But I think what's important to look at is does the social situation require that people find a whole plurality and of service offers to choose from, or would it be more interesting to provide a established team in a very small social space, which is more into that can address problems there. Very interesting is so that we are looking at do we need a exclusive contract such as public procurement provides it, or is it more sensible to offer a very open set of providers? Then I think that what we should look at, and that again brings us to innovation partnership, is how necessary is it to exchange and cooperate in shaping the social services offices from the beginning. And I think that's indeed where, as we heard it often now this morning, where the scope of innovation partnership comes into the picture. And I think it's very it's applicable where German law specifically prescribes public procurement, or where it makes where public authorities are free to use it, and where yes, and sorry, pause. But I have done now. But I'm sorry. But I think I can. I will try again to get to my last. Share. I'm sorry. Yes, here. I think there are two settings which I would like to look at. One is whether municipality has a strong interest in multiple issues in a defined setting, and a defined social quarter. You could take up the example Jenny has presented of the building contract, but you can expand this from a single building project to a whole social quarter, and where you can say, okay, we need a new concept for a specific setting, and where we want to combine several aspects of sustainability, where we want to look at creating a good social the offering of social services, and to secure that they can work with ecologically sustainable as well. And I could what would be sensible too is if you look for a coordinated interdisciplinary service offer. So you look at tendering a contract to a bidding consortium which represents different social professionalities, and so you can really create and see what does this certain social space need and how can we address it. I think another setting that would be very closely related would be the concept award. If a municipality wants to sell a real estate and on the base of a development concept, I think then again an innovation partnership could be a very good set and concept to get to a good result and make sure that the that the real estate is developed in a good way. So that brings me to the end. Yes, and I thank you very much for your attention and your interest.
Thank you very much, Friederike. And now participants can still use a Slido to ask one or two questions to Friederike. And in the meanwhile, I have one question to the speakers who would like to intervene by responding only one or two words. So in your view, what are the main challenges and opportunities in the use of innovation partnerships?
I would say gaining trust in the procedure.
Okay.
And
Jenny?
Oh, I think
Jenny and Ulla?
I'll get back to what one of the attendees said. The new horizons is the word for me from this session.
Okay. And
Yes,
Ulla?
and as I said earlier, the biggest challenge is to keep all the parties involved in and the opportunities. I think it helps to develop our own core business and provide better services to the clients. That's the main point.
And I think, if I may say a word on the opportunity, I think great to unite the knowledge about the demand and the professional experience of the service providers.
Thank you very much. And can my colleague show the questions from the audience? So do you think are there other methods for suppliers, especially in the social sector, to cooperate more closely with public authorities in procurement? I think this is for Friederike.
Yes, I would say so, because so I said that social law in Germany at least provides a huge toolbox, and there are non-exclusive contracts which open the possibility to offer services, and there's a great scope for negotiation. And I think you can use this, but and then of course you have to deal with much more service providers, but there you are very free to negotiate. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I do not see other questions, so we can now maybe conclude with another poll on Slido. So if you go to the screen with polls, yes. And there is one question only for contracting authorities. Have you ever thought of using innovation partnership in a tendering procedure? And no, this is a clear answer. So we really hope, well, it's changing now, yes. 25% yes, good. But we hope with this webinar we have inspired you. Okay, okay, good. We can now move to the second question, which is for service providers only. Would you be ready to respond to a call using innovation partnerships? Not yet. Okay, okay. But you heard earlier from Anna that the Commission has prepared some resource material on innovation partnerships. So this is clearly a topic where more capacity building could be organized. And the last question is the word cloud poll. Okay, what kind of support would you need to start using innovation partnerships? And in this way, you could give the Commission some ideas. Advice, support, templates. Templates would be useful. Money, training, lobbying the management, training. Yes, there is a clear. Okay. Yes, maybe there is some room for the Commission to launch some projects or tendering procedure to organize some training on procurement in general, but also on the use of innovation partnerships. Practical examples. Yes, as you know, one of the services of this GPP helpdesk is to provide case studies. They are included in the newsletter. In the newsletter, there is always one or two case studies, and with time, we might also develop some cases on innovation partnerships. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much. I would like to thank all the speakers. It has been really interesting to get all your insights, and of course also the attendees for their active participation. And I would like to give the floor to Anna Lupi for some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Valentina. And really also thank you very much to all three speakers. I think all three presentations were extremely insightful also for me to get the ball rolling on working a bit more on the intersection between innovation and social procurement. And really my takeaways from today come mostly, but not exclusively, from Ulla's presentation. I thought that her slide on the lessons learned was extremely interesting, and rarely do we see that much frankness also coming from a public authority. But I think in general, what the way I related to it was that really the innovation partnership is an instrument that can help public authorities have this a little bit this closer relationship with the supplier, build something together with the supplier, and I think the mutual trust is not just in the relationship in the end with the supplier, but also with the citizen, because in the end, if these methods allow public authorities to buy better services for the citizens and also possibly involved, because that was also one of the questions that the speakers replied. If you manage to also involve in the process a little bit the users or the citizens, you inevitably end up giving a slightly better service than in the past, rather than taking something, you know, that is already ready-made off the shelf. So for me, the mutual trust is unlike, I would say, Jenny, who was the New Horizon person, and I agree with that as well. But for me, the main takeaway was really the mutual trust. And thank you very much to all of you for tuning in today.
Thank you very much. We will send the links to the presentations and also to the recording. So even for those, there were more people, much more people registered. So there will be the possibility for sure to review this webinar. And we will organize also new webinars after the summer, other 2 this year. So follow our newsletter, and if you haven't registered yet, subscribe to it, and you will get all the information about future events. Thank you very much to all, and have a good day.
Thanks for you to organize this.